And welcome to the Brody File. I am not David Brody. I am Amber C. Strong filling in for David Brody, who once again is off chasing candidates. So we're going to catch up with David later on in the show. In the meantime, we have to talk about Donald Trump, John Kasich, Ted Cruz, and of course this week's primary. Trump was the big winner. Surprise, surprise. There were 5 states up for grabs: Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. Trump won Connecticut, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and Rhode Island. I believe they call that a shutout. He won those states despite the new Kasich-Cruz alliance. We around here like to call it Crasic, kind of like Brangelina. Anyway, despite their efforts, Trump still came out on top. And here's more from Donald Trump.
Oh, I'm winning it. It's over. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. These two guys cannot win. There's no path. So why would I change? You know, if you have a football team and you're winning, and then you get to the Super Bowl, you don't change your quarterback, right? So I'm not changing. Well, it's an interesting question. I've had many people write in, tweet in, modern way of writing, but write in, tweet in, call in. Please don't change. Please don't change. Just stay the way you are. So, look, I'm not changing. You know, I went to the best schools. I'm like a very smart person. I'm going to represent our country with dignity and very well. But I don't want to really change my personality. I think, you know, it got me here.
Moving on to the Democrats, Bernie Sanders says he still believes he has a narrow window to win his party's nomination. Despite his optimism, Hillary Clinton won 4 out of the 5 states that were up for grabs. Sanders won Rhode Island. Here's more from the Democratic frontrunner Hillary Clinton.
Too many people feel at the mercy of forces too big for anyone to control, and they just worry that those of us in politics put our own interests ahead of the national interest. The faith that we can make things better, that we can give our kids a better future than we had, is at the heart of who we are as a nation. And it's one of many reasons that being American has always been such a blessing. Now, the other day, Mr. Trump accused me of playing the, quote, woman card. Well, if fighting for women's health care and paid family leave and equal pay is playing the woman card, then deal me in.
Now here to discuss all of the craziness from this week's primary contest is the name behind the fame, our good friend David Brody.
Hey Amber, we're here in Houston, Texas. Oh, I love Houston. They do that little, what is it, the Houston two? It's the Texas, I thought it was the Houston two-step. It's the Texas, I'm just doing all the Texas two-step. I don't know, we'll do line dancing later. We gotta talk about Donald Trump and boy, talk about doing big things in Texas. That's what they do things, what, bigger in Texas? Well, Donald Trump doing some big things nationally. 5 big states, as you've reported on, that he won on Tuesday. Let's go through them. Connecticut, Rhode Island, Delaware, Maryland, Pennsylvania, and guess what, Amber? Evangelicals, yeah, they're playing a role again. Now, granted, not many evangelicals in the Northeast, and I love you evangelicals in the Northeast, but there's not many of them. But in Maryland, Donald Trump captured 52% of evangelical voters. Ted Cruz had 24%. You go down the list. Pennsylvania, the evangelicals went for Donald Trump by 58% to 19% for Ted Cruz, and on we go. Evangelicals once again showing up for Donald Trump, not showing up for Ted Cruz. And let's just be honest. Can we be honest? We can be honest here. They're honest in Texas. Tracy from Texas, but let's be honest here. If it's not for evangelical support for Donald Trump, it's over. Ted Cruz wins. Ted Cruz needed the evangelical support that Donald Trump is getting. He hasn't received it, and that's the problem. So the question really becomes, why is Ted Cruz not receiving the evangelical support? Well, if I can just say between you, me, Amber, and I guess the camera and all of America, the reason is very simple. Evangelicals are not disliking Ted Cruz's message, but they may be disliking the messenger a little bit. And I think that's a big problem for Ted Cruz. He has not been able to forge any sort of emotional connection with folks, and that includes evangelicals, because the last time I checked, evangelicals are human, right? They're human. evangelicals are human, though, maybe some liberals don't think they are, but they are. And I think that's the big problem for Ted Cruz. And so we move on to Indiana. We move on to California in June. 2 big ones coming up. As for Ted Cruz's big announcement, of course, this week he went ahead and said, I'm going to go with Carly Fiorina if I am chosen as the nominee for the Republican Party. And so Carly Fiorina, Ted Cruz, a good matchup. I say a matchup, a good a match. That's what I meant, like an actual cohesion. Look, she helps, obviously, being a woman, going up against Hillary Clinton, that'll help. She's a great attack dog as a VP for sure, and she is a competent CEO. Now, clearly, she will get some questions about the fact that she has never even won political office before, and she's run a few times, so that might be an issue for her going forward. But anyhow, Amber, that's it from Houston. I gotta go. I'm doing some line dancing. Where we go? I don't know where we're going.
Taste of Texas.
Where are we going? We're going to the Taste of Texas. Sounds yummy. Back to you.
You know, earlier in the show, we talked about Kasich, that's Cruz and Kasich, teaming up to stop Donald Trump. The goal is to prevent Trump from getting the 1,237 delegates needed to guarantee the Republican nomination. So what they're hoping for is a contested convention. But what is a contested convention? How does it all work? Never fear, the Brody File team is here. Backed by popular demand is the Brody Files Convention Breakdown.
All right, here we go. Get ready for a few brain cramps, everybody. Stick with me. I'm going to try to make this as painless as possible. First up, the terms. Contested versus brokered convention. What exactly is a contested convention? Well, first of all, let's get this out of the way first. It's not this. No boxing ring, but that doesn't mean there's not going to be a lot of bad blood. Contested means we go to the convention in Cleveland and nobody has that magic number of 1,237 delegates to win on the first ballot. So if nobody wins on the first vote, well, guess what? We move on to a second vote. And at that point, it becomes a brokered convention. No, not because the Brody File crew ran out of money in Cleveland, not that type of broke. It's brokered because that's where the wheelin' and dealin' starts to take place. Voting until someone gets to 1,237. Will it be Trump, Cruz, or maybe someone completely different who can bring unity like Speaker of the House Paul Ryan? Heck, how about the Dalai Lama? Let's just hope it's not like the 1924 Democratic Convention in New York. It took 103, that's right, 103 ballots to finally choose a nominee. By the way, that's 102 too many. All right, now let's talk about the delegates. It can be very complicated, more complicated than even the hardest math problem, or even the NFL playoff tie-breaking system. But let's start with this. When the delegates show up in Cleveland, they're going to have to do 2 things. Obviously, first, they're going to have to go visit the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That's a given. But then, they're going to have to abide by how their state voted. So, for example, let's take Michigan. Trump won 25 delegates. Cruz won 17. So that means 25 delegates must vote for Trump in Cleveland on the first ballot, and 17 have to vote for Cruz. But what if nobody wins on the first ballot? Well, guess what, folks? All bets are off. Most delegates in the states are pretty much free to vote for whoever they want. And then, folks, it becomes a free-for-all. All right, maybe not food flying or like the Taiwanese parliament, but close. The wheeling and dealing starts. Delegates start talking about switching, and who knows, we may even have some rock, paper, scissors, shoot deliberations playing out on the floor. I don't know. This is where Ted Cruz's team has been on their A game, because what they've been doing for the last year is talking to these delegates to vote for Cruz on the second ballot. And they've also actually been finding people to run as delegates that would support Cruz after being obligated to vote for Trump on that first ballot. Meanwhile, the Trump team has been playing catch-up. Anyhow, back to the ballot situation. So look, after a first ballot, then comes a second ballot, hey, maybe a third ballot. We just keep going and going, and even going until someone, Cruz, Trump, Ryan, Justin Bieber, hey, never say never. Whoever gets to 1237, or until the rapture comes. It could be like the game of Monopoly that never ends. Oh yeah, one more thing that's going to make your head literally explode. Remember when we said the delegates pretty much have to vote for how their state voted? Right, well, that's true, except there are going to be about 200 delegates that actually arrive in Cleveland unbound. That means they can vote for whoever they want. Take Pennsylvania, for example. You see, they have 71 delegates up for grabs. The winner of the state is actually going to win 17 delegates. But what about the other 54? Well, guess what? They're not committed to anyone. They can vote for whomever they like. And that's where it really gets interesting. Why? Well, because the Trump and Cruz campaigns are going to call them up, try to convince them to vote for their guy on the first ballot. Legally, they can offer lots of perks like dinner, maybe a free spa treatment at a Trump luxury hotel. Heck, I don't know, even a free hayride with Ted Cruz. Hey, that's exciting. Yeehaw! Actually, this is all true. They can wine and dine them, just no money exchanging hands. That, nope, is a no-no.
No soup for you!
So think about it. If Trump comes in 50 delegates shy of 1237, you can be sure he's going to be, quote, working the room, trying to make sure those unbound delegates vote for him on the first ballot. Otherwise, I don't know, he may threaten to send them to Mexico. Who knows? And let's just conclude with this. If Trump doesn't get to 1237 on that first ballot, he's probably in trouble. Why? Because not only has Cruz's team found delegates that are actually going to switch to their guy on the second ballot, but most of the time, these delegates are folks that have been around politics for a while. And that hurts Trump, because those type of delegates would probably be less likely to support Trump as the process moves forward. So did you get all that?
Anyone?
Don't worry about it. There's not going to be a test. And at least this won't happen to you.
You're fired. Go.
It's going to be hot in Cleveland.
That was the convention breakdown. Thanks to the folks behind the scene here at The File. A lot of work went into putting that whole thing together. All right, when we come back, we're taking a look at the ever-changing religious landscape in the U.S. Are Americans losing their religion? A new study says, yeah, they are. We'll break it all down after the break. And welcome back to the Brody File. My name is Amber C. Strong, and I am a millennial. And I'm okay with admitting that, although recent studies show millennials are less religious than their parents, not true for this millennial, and that the overall religious landscape in the U.S. is changing. Here to explain a little more is our very own Jennifer Wishon, aka Jenny in the B Block.
You go, girl!
Despite our Judeo-Christian roots, fewer Americans are identifying as Christians, while the number of Americans with no religion is growing at a record pace. Pew Research first surveyed more than 35,000 Americans about their religious views in 2007, then repeated the study 7 years later. During that time, those who call themselves Christians dropped nearly 8%, driven by declines among mainline Protestant and Catholic congregations. Non-Christian faiths inched up ever so slightly, just over 1%. At the same time, though, Americans who say they're atheist, agnostic, or so-called religious nuns jumped by more than 6%, making the nuns now nearly 23% of the population. 3 Christian U.S. senators, 2 Democrats and 1 Republican, recently talked about this change and the role faith plays in their jobs as elected leaders.
I've struggled in 22 years in public life for sort of how to be a religious person in the world that I'm in. And what I've decided is I should just be authentically who I am, and much like I would share that I'm interested in the Kansas City Chiefs or love baseball and camping, if I would share that, or if I would share that I'm married and have 3 children, why wouldn't I share the most important thing about me?
Oklahoma Senator James Lankford says the nation is becoming increasingly uncomfortable with expressions of faith.
I tell people all the time that faith is faith when it permeates every part of who you are. If your faith only matters to you on weekends, that's really not a faith, that's a hobby. And you can have a hobby, that's okay, but if it's a faith, it affects how I treat my wife, it affects how we treat each other, it affects how I drive, it affects how I interact with other people. It shouldn't be something that I hide because I was elected.
As people of faith and lawmakers work through these issues, the senators agree open dialogue is critical.
People will say you're either for religious liberty or you're for gay marriage. Or they'll say if you support religious liberty, then you're anti-gay. And they want to take that and just pull that apart. And that is factually not who we are, nor where we have been as a nation. And I think that is a very precarious road of constricting speech.
Putting people in a box, Langford maintains, silences people of faith and stops important conversations. With the growth in millennials choosing lives without faith, Senator Chris Coons worries about religious literacy among non-believers. He says an individual's right to exercise their religion must be on equal footing with individual liberty.
As long as we can continue to lift up the importance of individual religious free exercise, and that it deserves an equal footing with a civil society where we respect individual liberty, we're at least asking the right questions.
And fortunately, those best principles do show up in the research. Devout Christians are actually reading their Bibles, sharing their faith, and praying together more today than they did 7 years ago. Senator Kaine says we're blessed to live in a country where both sides can talk about these issues civilly. That keeps America as a beacon to parts of the world where there is no peaceful approach to separate religious beliefs. For the Brody File, I'm Jennifer Wishon.
All right, when we come back, if you think the whole delegate process was confusing before, wait till you hear what's happening in the U.S. Virgin Islands. David Brody has that story after the break. Welcome back. With delegate madness all around us, it can be quite confusing, but perhaps there's no place more confusing than the U.S. Virgin Islands. They are a U.S. territory, so while they can't vote for president, they can vote during the presidential primary process. Things have gotten so nasty down there that David just had to research it for himself on a plush tropical island. Tough assignment. Well, David was kind enough to take a break from yachting and sipping lemonade to explain more about his trip this week to the Virgin Islands.
Well, Amber, hello from the U.S. Virgin Islands. We're on a ferry between St. John and St. Thomas, about 20-minute ferry ride, so I'm holding on for dear life. So, Amber, why are we in the Virgin Islands? Well, you know, but I have to tell the audience, right? We're here because of the big delegate story. It's very controversial. There's been name calling, there's been violence, there's been utter chaos down here. And it's all because of these 6 unbound delegates. 6 were elected, but then the GOP chairman decided to choose 6 alternates, and it's a long story as to why, but the bottom line is there could be 2 slates of delegates in the U.S. Virgin Islands representing the Virgin Islands in Cleveland. Excuse me, in Cleveland come July. And so we're here to sort it all out. Plus, we're doing a great faith story on Freshwater Church where they're bringing the gospel to the people that need it here in the worst way, because there's a lot of poverty and a lot of folks that even though it's paradise all around us, it really is a situation where paradise is broken. Anyhow, so here we are on the ferry. Amber, did we pack Dramamine? We did pack Dramamine. Okay, I'm not playing around. You think I'm joking? I'm embellishing? Amber, I'm not embellishing. This is a bit crazy. Anyhow, so enjoy the stuffy old studio. We'll see you later. U.S. Virgin Islands, out.
A fascinating story. Thanks, David, for taking on such a tough assignment. All right, when we come back, the story of one American Idol contestant using his fame to bring a little hope to a place that could sure use it. More Brody File after this. All right, welcome back. Well, it was the show that launched the careers of Kelly Clarkson, Carrie Underwood, and Jennifer Hudson. Even a failed audition could lead to fame on the American Idol stage. Cue William Hung. No, don't. Just kidding. But now the curtain has been drawn, leaving the season's contestants looking for their next big break. I traveled to Flint, Michigan to talk to one contestant who knows exactly where he's going, and he says God is leading the way. Take a look. There's a new voice coming out of Michigan, and it belongs to Manny Torres. He snagged the final ticket on the final season of American Idol. Some call it fate, but the Foot native calls it faith.
It's so cool just to see where God's taken me from, the start to now.
After wooing the judges with his acoustic rendition of Maroon 5's This Love, Torres excelled with his infectious energy and dynamic smile and quickly became a fan favorite. When we caught up with him, he was visiting his childhood church, El Shaddai Assembly of God in Flint. He recalls memories of growing up as a preacher's kid.
With the car, I'd be like doing
Donuts?
donuts in the parking lot. My dad's like, man, they haven't even plowed yet. What are you doing? I'm like, man, that's exactly when you got to do it.
Torres says it was here that his love of music began.
I came here and I would sing every Sunday. We knew that, I loved to sing, and we knew that I was good at it and things like that. But looking back, I mean, this is truly where I developed myself in my talent.
Pastor Abe Garcia says even as a kid, there was something different about Torres.
And as a young kid, he had an amazing talent, and he loved God. So it's been a joy to see that, and then to see him now on a worldwide stage, showing his God-given talents and honoring God. It's awesome to see that.
Torres says the Idol platform opened the door for him to spread a little hope in a town that could sure use it.
In light of all what's happening, it's good just to bring positivity and good vibes and good energy, A lot of the times people get so caught up in the negativity or in the politics or what this is going on and that's going on. And at the end of the day, it's so hard to really kind of pinpoint why things happen. But then again, the key is just focusing on the positive, just enjoy the fellowship and what God has brought through this, and what God's doing through this.
So what's on the horizon for Torres? An album, maybe even a tour. No matter where the road takes him, Torres says his faith will always be a part of the journey.
The Hollywood scene can be a little, crazy. It can be, it's a heck of a world out there. But what I like to remind some people is that there's mission fields for everyone.
For now, you can find him where it all began, in the pulpit, leading worship and thankful for his shot on American Idol.
Regardless of how far I made it or how far I didn't make it, I mean, I was given a platform to share my gift with millions of people worldwide, I mean, I've had tweets and Facebooks and Instagram coming from all over the world, which is huge. And now my network and my mission field has opened up, I mean, like crazy.
A mission field he says he'll use to bring that same positive message to the people of Flint and around the world. All right, best wishes to Manny Torres. More of the Brody File after this. Stick with us. Well, that's it for this week's Brody File. Thanks so much for watching. In the meantime, I'm going to track down David Brody, get him back here just in time for the next episode. From all of us here at the Brody File, have a great week and God bless.